Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Roja Zaitoonie and I am a PhD student within the graduate school MEDIS 21. Today I will briefly present my paper about the United Nations efforts on public communication in peace operations using the examples of Liberia, Sierra Leone and Cote d'Ivoire. Thanks for joining this session. I will now switch back to my PowerPoint presentation. The research question of my paper is, which measures on public communication did the UN adopt and implement in its peace operations in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Cote d'Ivoire? Specifically, which tasks did the public communication programs have? What were the similarities and the differences between the case studies? And what happened after the end of the peace operations? Let me give you some quick background information. The UN was founded following the Second World War in 1945 to promote peace and international security, human rights, and human development through international cooperation. The UN has different types of peace operations. In my study, I focus on peacekeeping and peace-building missions. Peacekeeping missions serve to support the implementation of a ceasefire or peace agreement. Peace-building missions serve to implement long-term measures for sustainable peace and sometimes follow up peacekeeping missions, as it was the case in Sierra Leone. As we can see on this slide, the UN is a complex organization and various UN bodies are involved in public communication within peace operations. The Security Council is the only body which has the power to mandate UN peace operations. Sometimes, but not always, it includes measures on public communication within the mandates of the peace operations. The Secretary General, supported by special representatives, implements the peace operations. The Department of Peace Operations, DPO, and the Department of Global Communications, DGC, are the main sub-bodies to support the Secretary General and the special representatives in implementing the public communication programs. The General Assembly is not directly involved in the adoption and implementation of peace operations, but approves the budgetary affairs. Last but not least, the UN Development Programme, UNDP, and UNESCO support the public communication programs within peace operations if required. The UN has always used public communication in its peace operations in one way or another. But comprehensive public communication programs evolved only after the turn of the millennium. Learning from difficult peace operations, for example in Bosnia and Herzegovina or Rwanda, the Security Council affirmed in April 2000 that United Nations peacekeeping missions should include a mass media component that can disseminate information about international humanitarian law and human rights law, while also giving objective information about the activities of the United Nations. The Brahimi report, which aimed at improving UN peace operations, reaffirmed shortly after that an effective public information and communications capacity in mission areas is an operational necessity for virtually all United Nations peace operations. Effective communications helps to dispel rumor, to counter disinformation, and to secure the cooperation of local populations. It is thus essential that every peace operation formulate public information campaign strategies, particularly for key aspects of the mission's mandate, and that such strategies and the personnel required to implement them be included in the very first elements deployed to help start up a new mission. After this short introduction, let me now briefly present the methodology and the key findings of my research. Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Cote d'Ivoire are three countries along the West African coast which suffered from protracted civil wars. In each of the countries, the UN established two peacekeeping missions. As I have mentioned before, in Sierra Leone, the UN furthermore established two peace-building missions to follow up the peacekeeping missions. For this paper, I analyzed resolutions of the Security Council and reports of the Secretary General to examine the UN's efforts on public communication in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Cote d'Ivoire. 203 out of 315 documents on the peace operations contained information about public communication. To analyze the documents, I first conducted an auto-coding on MaxQDA to detect relevant passages. Afterwards, I coded these passages manually by the techniques of summarizing and categorizing inspired by Philip Myring. The UN's efforts on public communication can generally be divided into 5 main categories. Public information includes all measures that inform about the UN's goals and activities and other relevant matters. Strategic communication comprises all measures that promote the UN's goals and activities. Protection of public communication rights covers all measures to protect freedom of expression, access to information, and press freedom. Prevention of public communication rights abuses encompasses all measures to prevent abuses of freedom of expression, access to information, and press freedom, especially in terms of propaganda and public incitement. Media and ICT development embraces all measures to enhance media and ICT systems. There are several similarities between the 3 countries. The first missions started with a very small public communication program that expanded continuously during the course of the missions. Generally, there was an overall focus on public information and strategic communication about the UN and the peace operation, the domestic peace process, national reconciliation, current affairs, human rights, civic education, etc. To disseminate public information and strategic communication, the UN established UN radios, which became major domestic broadcasters. Furthermore, a special emphasis was given to elections. On the other side, there are also differences. Liberia had no special focus other than public information and strategic communication. Sierra Leone had a special focus on media development, which included the establishment of a public broadcaster, the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, SLBC, and the establishment of a public media regulator, the Independent Media Commission. Côte d'Ivoire had a special focus on propaganda and public incitement, as well as media capture, which included measures on media monitoring and criminal prosecution. On the photo to the right, we can see former President Laurent Gbagbo, who heavily used state media to spread propaganda and incitement, including against the UN. After the peace operations had ended, the UN radios were transferred into domestic broadcasters. UN Mill Radio in Liberia was handed over to the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and became ECOWAS Radio. Radio Namsil in Sierra Leone was handed over to the public broadcaster, SLBC, and became SLBC FM. And Unoki FM in Côte d'Ivoire was handed over to Fondation Félix Houphouët-Boigny, which was supported by UNESCO and became Radio de la Paix. Let's come to the conclusion. First of all, we can sum up that UN public communication programs mainly focus on public information and strategic communication. Protection of communication rights and prevention of communication rights abuses become particularly relevant in hostile media environments. Media and ICT development are not core to peacekeeping operations, but they become important byproducts of UN radios and key elements of long-term peace building. Furthermore, we can conclude from the document analysis that the UN's public communication programs are predominantly shaped by their practice rather than their mandate. So do UN public communication programs rather fall into the category of public relations or public broadcasting? I argue they are both. Formally, UN public communication programs aim at supporting the UN peace operations through public information and strategic communication, and therefore fall into the category of public relations. However, the UN radios, which were established in each of the 3 countries, became de facto public broadcasters that provided the population with news, educational programs, and entertainment that went far beyond public relations. This paper was based on UN document analysis only. Obviously, further data is needed for a complete picture. Therefore, as a next step, I will conduct expert interviews with key stakeholders. Thank you very much for your attention. For further questions or remarks, don't hesitate to contact me. I am looking forward to seeing you at the live panel on July 12th.